And so today what we're going to start with is we are going to start off with a one-time setup. We're going to talk very briefly about how to configure the different merchant accounts that you can use. Then we'll move on to donation pages, all of the different page types that you can configure, and then how to actually configure those payment and donation options on those pages. And we're going to go through step by step, walking through and really talking through like what are all of the different settings and what do they do. Then we're going to move on to mailings and especially how to personalize those mailings and how to target them to reach the people that you want to reach. After that, we'll cover how to gauge the performance of your mailings and see how well they're doing. Then we'll move on to finding your donors in ActionKit. And finally, we'll wrap it up with reporting. So first, I want to talk a little bit about one-time setup. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on one-time setup, but I do want to mention that you can accept donations in both ActBlue and ActionKit. Many of our clients accept donations with both. And if you are using ActBlue with ActionKit, you may know that ActBlue has a sync feature allowing you to sync donation data from ActBlue into ActionKit. We're also developing an in-house version of that sync that's designed to smooth out some of the rough edges with the existing sync. So contact support if you'd like to use our version, and we'll get you set up. If you're setting up a new merchant account, we really recommend going with Braintree for a number of reasons, including PCI compliance, being able to use Apple Pay, ACH direct debit payments, and in many cases, being able to automatically update credit card expiration dates. You also own your own data, so you could take another vendor if you really wanted to. Finally, if you're using Braintree, you really should have our recurring retry system set up, and we can help you with that. If you have any questions with how the recurring retries work, feel free to contact support. That said, all of these merchant accounts listed, Braintree, Authorize.net, PayPal, PayFlow Pro, these will all allow you to accept one-time and recurring donations with ActionKit. So if you'd like to set up a new account, contact support and we'll help you out. Now we're going to move on to pages. Most clients will either set up their donation pages in ActionKit or use ActBlue, maybe a combination of the two. But I do want to say that even if you're currently using ActBlue exclusively for your donations, I still think that this training is going to be of interest to you because I'm going to be showing you some clever things that you can set up, including how to incorporate things like a suggested ask into your mailings. The three page types that we're going to be covering today are a donation page, an update recurring donation page, and a cancel recurring donation page. And for those last two, the update recurring and the cancel recurring, those require a sign-in because we want your recurring donors to only be able to update or cancel their own donations. And I'll show you how to use those later on. But first, let's start with the regular donation page. On screen is the Pages tab, where on the left, you can browse recently created pages. You can see details like the page title, you can see staff notes, you can see what type of page it is, different tags that are available, when it was created. You can edit the page with the edit button. You can click view to see what the finished page looks like. Or you could copy pages as well if you wanted to use an existing page as the starting point. On the right-hand side is the navigation sidebar. And here I've expanded the Add Page menu to see the different types of pages that we can create. So let's click Donation to start creating a donation page. Once you've done that, the Action Basics screen is the very first screen that you'll see when you're creating or editing a page. This Action Basics screen has details that are common to every type of page. Things like the title, which is what appears at the top of the page. We need a Green New Deal. Things like the short name. This gets used for the URL. So the URL is going to have Green New Deal Donate in it. The notes field is for internal staff use, and I think of this as, what is this page all about? And I like to be really descriptive with my notes so I can look back and know what this page is for, why we made it. And finally, there's the tags, which I think of as, what are the categories for what this page is all about? And here I've tagged this page with Green New Deal and climate change. If we were to scroll down a little bit from the Action Basics page, we would see payment options for a donation page. So this is where we're going to choose which payment account, or in other words, which merchant account we're going to use on this page. How do we accept those donations? And in this example, I've selected my Braintree account, but you can use whichever account you like. You might be wondering, you might have seen on here that you can have both a payment account and a PayPal account. How does that work exactly? Well, on this slide, I have two screenshots, and this screenshot shows that I have both my Braintree account selected and my PayPal account selected. So this bottom screenshot shows what the user would actually see when they're on that page. They would have the option of clicking Continue to process their donation via Braintree, or if they clicked this PayPal button down below, then the donation is going to be processed by PayPal, and then they'll be sent back to us once that donation is complete. If you don't want to give your visitors the PayPal option, then make sure you're not selecting a PayPal account up here on your donation page, and then this PayPal button, that'll disappear. So if you are using PayPal, ActionKit doesn't require any user data by default in order to continue on and complete that PayPal donation. Let's take a look at what that donation flow looks like. Here we have, I've selected no user data required, and remember that's the default. So when someone goes in to my donation page, they enter a dollar amount, and then they click continue, then they would be able to click this checkout with PayPal without completing any information in this name section. Notice how in this screenshot, all of the fields, name, email, address, all of that, it's all blank. Even though those fields aren't required right now, your visitors might still enter in the information anyways before clicking or checkout with PayPal. But strictly speaking, if you say PayPal no user data required, then it's not going to be required. Now, if you don't require user data, but someone does enter their email address on the donation form, then this is the email address highlighted in red here that will get stored in ActionKit regardless of what PayPal account they pay with at PayPal, because sometimes the email address that they give you might not match the email address that they signed up with at PayPal. If the user comes to your site from a mailing link, then they're going to have an AK ID, that ActionKit ID. And if they don't enter an email address, but they came from that mailing link, then they click the or check out with PayPal. We're going to use the account that's associated with their AK ID in order to figure out who made that donation. And again, this is if you're not requiring user data. The third scenario if you're not requiring user data is if they don't enter an email and they don't have an AK ID associated with them, for instance, if they're not coming from a mailing, then we're going to give them a temporary email address in our system when they start the order. When the order is completed on the PayPal side, then we'll get the email address from PayPal. In this case, I entered in my email address in PayPal, and then we're going to check to see, do we have this user in our system? If not, we create that new user in ActionKit, and then finally, we'll connect that order to the email address. So I know that that was like a lot of different scenarios and hypotheticals and what ifs, but I just wanted to walk through all the different things that could happen if you choose no user data required. But if you don't like any of those options, you could require email or you could require name and email. Let's take a look at what happens then. So this is what happens if you try to click or check out with PayPal before you've filled in that information. It's going to stop you. It says, hey, name is required. You've got to fill that out first. And then you could click the PayPal link. Chances are, though, if you're requiring name, they're probably going to fill out most of the rest of the information as well. Anyways, I just wanted to run through all of the different PayPal options. I know that that was a lot of different scenarios, but I think it's worth demystifying what's happening behind the scenes. For international options, you can choose whether to allow donations from outside the United States by checking this box here. If you're using PayFlow Pro or Authorize.net as your payment processor, you'll also need to go into those systems and disable their address verification systems, or AVS, as well, because those systems aren't built to handle international addresses. So if you're checking this box, make sure you go into PayFlow Pro or Authorize.net. The Use Account Switcher checkbox, that's for you if you have multiple payment processors set up, one for each currency that you accept. For instance, if I have one Braintree account that was set to collect US dollars and another Braintree that was set to collect British pounds and so on, then I could check this box and it would allow visitors to switch which currency that they wanted to donate in. Just be careful not to use the account switcher if your page offers products, because product orders will fail. And we'll talk a little bit more about products in a little bit. Scrolling down a bit more, we're going to come to the donation options. Here's where we can configure some important details about how we ask for money. We have the minimum amount, the suggested ask formula, which we'll get to in a minute, products and candidates, and then the goal. But first, the minimum amount. What's the lowest amount of money someone would be allowed to give on this page? The suggested ask formula is something we're going to spend a bit of time on right now. You can choose whether to use the suggested ask formula if you want. And what a suggested ask formula is it looks at a person's previous donation history to figure out how much money to ask for. We've given you a default suggested ask formula and also a default suggested ask formula for asking for recurring donations, but you can also customize your own. To create a new suggested ask formula, click the blue plus sign on the right-hand side here. Once you've done that, it's going to open up a pop-up window prompting you for a few things to get started. First, you'll give your suggested ask rule a name and select the currency that you'll be using for this rule. Next, we have to decide which donation amount we're going to count towards the calculations that we do. We have a few options here. Should we look at this person's highest donation in order to figure out how much money we should ask for? Or should we look at their second highest donation? And based on that, we're going to decide how much money to ask for. Or maybe the average donation that they've given is a better gauge. Or maybe you want to look at their most recent contribution, excluding recurring donations. So it's really up to you, and you have quite a few options here. Similarly, you can also take a look at the time span of when you want to look at those donations. Should we look at all of the donations that they've made in the last 12 months? Should we look at all of the donations that they've made ever? Or maybe just donations in the last 6 months are relevant. So you really have a lot of options to slice and dice between the amount and the time span to figure out how much money you should ask and what you think is going to be most relevant to the folks on your list. There's also an option to exclude tags, which will exclude donations that are made on any pages with those tags when it's performing its calculations. Now, in this example, I'm going to choose highest donation that they've made from the beginning of time. So I'm going to be looking at their highest donation ever. And then down below in the suggested ask conditions, these are the rules that determine how much money to ask for based on those previous donation amounts. So remember, I chose highest donation in the last 12 months. How this works is it asks, was Shannon's highest donation in the last 12 months less than $10? Well, if so, let's ask her for $10. Well, okay, if not, if it wasn't less than $10, was it less than $25? If so, let's ask her for $25. Okay, if it wasn't less than $25, was it less than $50? If so, let's ask her for $50, and so on. Now, and you can set as many suggested ask conditions as you like. Once you've saved your suggested ask rule, you can use it on your page. So I want to say briefly that ActionKit offers basic support for selling products, and this was designed for really things like selling or giving away bumper stickers for list growth or other kind of smallish premiums. You can do things like t-shirt sizes, but we don't have built-in support for t-shirt sizes. We also don't support shipping or taxes or fulfillment tracking. So if you do need a storefront connected to ActionKit, if that's something that's really important to you, then I'd suggest building an integration with the API. It's definitely possible. So it's something that can be done. It's just most of our clients aren't using it that way. But if you want to be able to just give away your Green New Deal stickers and maybe get some new members on your list, that's something that's very easy to do with the products, and you can do that here. And if you needed to create a new product, you could click the blue plus sign. We also allow you to bundle contributions for a candidate. Here I've selected Shannon Turner for mayor. So remember, anytime you see that blue plus sign, you can create a new item of that type. So you could create a new product, or you could create a new candidate here. And that'll, once you've saved it, it'll link that to your page. If you were with us for the webinar last month on advocacy, you'll remember the goal that we talked about. You can set a goal for your page, and a thermometer will show for your users, showing the progress. For petition pages, that's like, we have 75,000 signatures, and our goal is 100,000. Can you sign today? For donation pages, that's, we've raised $50,000, but we're going for 75,000, right? This can be a great motivator for folks. And I'm sure you've seen it on a lot of different websites, So the way to make this work is you can choose either the total number of donations made by choosing the total actions, or you can choose a specific amount of money that you're trying to raise on this page. And then the thermometer updates as people give money. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I do want to briefly mention fraud filters. Now and again, some scammer who's stolen a bunch of credit card numbers may try to test them out to make sure that they work by making a bunch of small $1 contributions on your site in rapid succession. This doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Payment processors have safeguards to prevent this sort of thing from happening, but so do we. And I've included the link to the fraud filter documentation here, and you can contact support for more help with this. And I'll make sure that you get the slides on Monday for the webinar, and you'll also get the recording too. So that's how you'll be able to get to that documentation. Next, once you've clicked Next to Edit Content, then your page will save and you'll come to the Edit Content screen. Up top, you can choose the appearance of the page. The template set controls the look and the feel and the layout of the page, and each client has customized their own template sets according to their branding and design. Your team likely has a couple of template sets in use for different situations, so pick the one that meets your design needs. You could also host your page outside of ActionKit, but we'll assume for the purposes of this webinar that you're hosting it with us. Scrolling down a bit, you'll come to the Ask text, which you can use to customize your appeal. What's going to motivate someone to give? And then there's also the thank you text, which will appear on the thank you page after someone's made their donation. At the bottom of the page are the amount options, allowing you to determine the preset amounts that someone can click to donate. So with these settings, I'm going to show buttons for $10, $25, $35, $50, $75, and $100. I'm setting no default amount, and I'm going to sort the donation amounts from high to low. I'm also going to show a checkbox or a box for other in case someone wants to give a different amount. Once you've saved that page and moved on to the next one, the third section is the after action info, which is what happens after someone has made a donation. By default, ActionKit will create a thank you page for you. But if you wanted to send your visitors to a different page, you could customize that here by changing the URL. Scrolling down a bit, you can send a confirmation email to your donors thanking them for their donation. Most clients will send a confirmation email after someone has taken action with a petition, for instance, but it's so important to send a confirmation email after a donation because your donors are really expecting to receive a receipt. First, you'll want to make sure that the Send Confirmation button is checked, and then you'll choose which email wrapper that you want. In the email wrapper, it's the layout and look and feel and styling of your mailing. Next, you choose a from line, which is who is this email going to be from? And then you're going to choose a subject for your email. Finally, there's the body of the email. And since this is going to donors, we want to personalize it with all of the details of their donation. To do that, we're going to click the snippet link highlighted in red here, and it opens up this snippet menu. So this is how you add personalization like, hey, Shannon, thank you for your gift of $27 on March 15th. So in the snippets menu to add my name, you'd go to users and pick first name. And that's going to insert some code into the body of your mailing. And then to add my gift amount, you scroll down to donation and you click amount, and that's going to add in the order amount. You can also add this as inside your email subject as well. So once you're done, you're going to scroll all the way down and click View on Site to see what your page looks like. And I think it looks pretty good. Also, clicking this View on Site button up top will take you here as well, and it's a great way to be able to see exactly what your pages look like to your visitors. Anyways, we're here on our page, and you can see that the donation amounts shown are the same ones that we've entered. Remember, we told it to sort by highest to lowest, and we didn't include a default amount, but we did allow a box for other. Here's what a user whose highest previous donation was $50 will see. Based on our suggested ask rules that we defined earlier, remember it was, have you given $50 or between $50 and $75? If so, we're going to ask you for $75. So $75 is pre-selected because we're trying to nudge them to give a little bit more. And one thing to note about suggested ask rules is they will take precedence over your default ask. So if $35 was my default ask, if someone hasn't donated before, then $35 will be pre-selected. But if they have donated before, ActionKit will use that suggested ask formula to figure out how much to ask them for. This is a really important point, so I want to emphasize, give yourself peace of mind that everything actually works by making an actual donation with actual money on your donation pages. This is especially important if you customize your donation template. We don't have enough time today to cover how to customize the layout and look and feel, the styling of your donation pages in this webinar today. But if you do make changes to the template, you'll want to make sure that you test your donation pages to make sure everything works correctly. Remember, you can always refund the charge later. I'm going to take my own advice and test this page out, start to finish. First, I select $10 as my donation. And I fill in my contact information and click Continue. And I fill in my credit card information and I click Donate $10. Here's the thank you page that I have set up. I'm going to go in, check my email, and hey, look, I've got my confirmation email thanking me for my gift and giving me a receipt. You'll also notice that the personalization is in there, thanking me for the exact amount that I give and thanking me by name. Now, briefly, I want to show you a couple of advanced things that you could do. If you need more options than the default amount and the suggested ask rules, you could also change the amount of money that's pre-selected by adding some parameters to the end of the URL. And you can see that highlighted in red here. This takes precedence over defaults and any suggested ask rules on the page. And since this is pretty small to see, I also put it as the title of this slide. Remember, you'll be getting slides on Monday. Another great and very common tactic that lots of clients use is after visitors have signed a petition, it's a great time to ask them for money. So the way to do that is to change the redirect URL of your petition page. So let's say I have a petition page, we need to invest in solar jobs. This is not a donation page, it's a petition page. I would change my after action info, my redirect URL from this default thank you page to the URL of my donation page, right? Hey, we need to invest in solar jobs. Don't you agree? Great. Do you want to give us money and help make it happen? Another thing you can do is set up staff notification emails. And these are emails that will go to you or other staff members to let you know when special events happen with your page. For example, if a major donor gives $1,000 or more, or if you want to be notified every 1,000 donations on a given page, or to tell staff about a new recurring donation. And you can set these up on the after action info screen. Fortunately, we don't have enough time to cover those today, but I'll give you the link to the documentation in the slides here. A couple of other things just to put some ideas in your head about what you could do is having a pop-up that says, hey, do you want to make this donation monthly? Or a checkbox to say, yeah, you know what, I'll cover the processing fee. Or another one like, no, I don't want the premium, I just want to give you the money. Now that we've talked about donation pages, let's cover recurring donation pages. These don't have a lot of options to configure, so I'll just show you what it looks like to your visitors. When a visitor goes to a recurring donation page, they're going to be prompted to log in, and that's to make sure that someone else can't update or cancel their donation. Now, your visitor will either enter in their email or password, or maybe they haven't logged in before, and so there's a link for that highlighted in red here. And I'll show you the flow for what happens if someone's never logged in before. So let's say I clicked that link, I enter in my email address so I can receive my password setup link. And only if someone's actually, made a recurring donation with us will they receive that email. So I'm going to go in, I check my email, and I get this link that I can click on to update my account. I'm going to create a password, and now finally I'm logged in. And I can see my recurring donation details, and I can change amount, or I can change my credit card information. And if you click one of these, it's going to expand a form and let you change those details. You could also cancel your donation from here if you really wanted to. The cancel recurring donation page is also protected by a login, but I'm not going to show you the whole I don't have a password login flow all over again. Instead, here's what the page looks like once you've already logged in. It looks pretty similar to what it looks like if you clicked cancel donation from the update recurring donation page, but it's actually a different page I created. Like the update recurring donation page, I'm not going to show you how to configure it because honestly, there's just not that many options. And I know we're all eager to go to mailings. So next, we're going to walk through creating a mailing. And just like the last section, even if you fundraise primarily through ActBlue, I think you're still going to find this section really useful. From the Mailings tab, we're going to click Create New Draft on the right-hand side to begin creating a new mailing. Everything starts here on the Compose screen. First, let's think of our subject line. And here I've chosen It's Time for a Green New Deal for my subject. You can test multiple subject lines too, and ActionKit will split the recipients roughly equally between the subject lines you choose. So 25% of my recipients are going to get It's Time for a Green New Deal. Another 25 are going to get Did you see who came out in support of the Green New Deal? A third 25% will get There's no Planet B. And the last 25% will get Our Planet is Warming. You could also do preview text if you wanted to, but I've chosen not to do that here in this example. Next, who's this mailing going to be from? You can choose your from line next. You can create a new from line with the blue plus sign if the ones in the drop-down don't meet your needs. And if you leave the reply to blank, it's going to use the from line as the reply address. But if you needed to customize that, you could enter a different email address here. Just like with the pages that we saw earlier, you can set notes, which are just for internal staff use. And these are used for describing your mailing. And tags, they're a way of categorizing what your mailing is all about. So the tags that I've used for this mailing are Green New Deal and Fundraiser. The wrapper of a mailing controls the look and feel and layout of your mailing. This wrapper is the built-in template with sidebar wrapper. And just by changing the wrapper to the ActionKit Release Notes wrapper, I can change the entire layout and look and feel of the mailing. Your team is already going to have a couple wrappers that are set up that are already customized with your organization's branding and design. So make sure that you choose the wrapper that meets your design needs. Next, what's the call to action for this mailing? If this were a petition mailing, then the call to action would be, sign this petition. And for the landing page, we'd choose the petition page. Since this is a fundraising mailing, our call to action is donate money. And so our landing page is going to be this donation page that we just set up. We need a Green New Deal. Now, this right here is a really important point on this slide, so I want to really emphasize it. Whether you fundraise entirely in ActBlue or entirely in ActionKit or a mix of the two, using a donation page as your landing page, that's going to let you use a suggested ask in your mailing. So create your donation page, create a suggested ask rule, tie it to that page, and then use that page as your landing page. And now you can customize and personalize your mailing with those suggested asks. We're going to see how to do that now. Here I've written out my email body. I have a little bit of personalization up top. Shannon, we need a Green New Deal and we need it now. Can you chip in some amount of money to help us make it a reality? Again, just like the pages, to get that personalization, we're going to go to the snippets menu highlighted in red, scroll down to donations, and we find the suggested ask. And you need to have a donation page as your landing page in order to be able to use that suggested ask. So I did that same thing to get the first name snippet that I'm using in the beginning. And yeah, next up, we're going to go to how did I get that link? So how did I get this link was in my snippets menu, I went to pages and I chose landing page HTTPS to get my URL. Then I can copy and paste this link and put it where it says, can you chip in suggested ask to help us make it a reality. If you're using ActBlue exclusively, then you could just get your link from ActBlue, for instance. Scrolling down a bit, I can check the preview pane to see what my mailing looks like. Just note that you may need to expand the preview pane if it's not already showing your mailing. Also in the preview pane are two buttons, Update Preview and View Mobile Preview. For the most part, the preview pane will update automatically, showing you what your mailing looks like as you edit it. But sometimes it gets a little out of date, and if it does, you can click Update Preview to have it refresh. View Mobile Preview gives you a sense of what your mailing will look like on smaller screens. And if we click that, we can see that our mailing has squished in a bit, just like if it were on a phone. And you can click View Desktop Preview to go back to seeing the full width version. Previews are helpful for making sure that your mailing looks good, but the true test comes in sending a proof mailing to yourself. And a proof mailing is one of the actual emails that we'll send to someone, except it's sent to you instead of to them. This is an especially good way to see what your personalization and your snippets look like and make sure that they look correct for many different recipients. Many clients will generate a proof and send it around to staff for final checks and edits, or sometimes even earlier as part of the draft stages. And when I go in and I check my email, my proof mailing looks pretty good. So I'm ready to move on to targeting. So there are so many different ways that you can slice and dice your list, and I covered a lot of those in great detail during the last webinar on advocacy. So be sure and watch that video too for more ideas on how to target your mailings. Today, I'm just going to focus on targeting to donors in specific, but I want you to know that you have a lot of options. First, we're going to start by clicking Add Criteria to this set, and it's going to open up a drop-down menu. Then I'm going to choose Donors. And if I click Donors for my targeting, then I'll be able to target to anyone who has donated just by checking this box. I'll also have the option of targeting to monthly donors, and let's look at a few options for that. For instance, I could target to active recurring donors or donors with cards that have expired and so on. And sending to active recurring donors could be a good way to ask them to give a little bit more each month. If you wanted to send an email asking people to update their credit card because it's expiring at the end of the month, here's a great built-in way to do that. The query library is another option, just like donors was when you click Add Criteria to this set. And the query library will let you look at reports, and anybody who matches the criteria of those reports will be pulled into the targeting of your mailing. So you can create a report with the query builder or by writing some SQL code, and ActionKit will use that to target to your members. Now, ActionKit also comes with a large number of very useful built-in queries, and I'm actually showing two of them now in this example. So this example will include major donors, but it excludes donors who have given in the last 30 days. You can also limit how many people will receive your mailing. So, for example, if you have 50,000 people who match your targeting, but you only want to send to 10,000 of them right now, you would enter 10,000 here. And this is often used to test a mailing before going for a full send. Once we've saved our targeting, we're going to come to the final screen. This is the proof and send screen. This is a summary of everything we just did. It's a great chance to review our subject lines, our landing page, everything about this mailing. You can review the content of your mailing and also view previews of this page, including the links for both desktop and mobile preview. There's also a chance to review the targeting of your mailing, and here we can see how many people this mailing will go to, which is 1,230, and how we came to get that number by looking at the includes and the excludes. At the very bottom of the page, if you have sending privileges, you'll have a few options to send this mailing. You could either send it now, schedule it for later, or make this a recurring mailing. Let's take a look at what it looks like to create a recurring mailing series. If I wanted to mail to recurring donors whose credit cards are about to expire and ask them to enter in a new credit card, clicking this blue plus sign allows me to add a new recurring series. Or if I had one already, I could click Edit. Here's the screen to add or edit a recurring mailing series. And I want to say right off the bat, like, whoa, this looks like a lot on this page, but it's mostly just helper text. So all of this help text will explain in great detail how to set things up, how everything works, what's going on behind the scenes. So anytime that you see this helper text, pay attention to it because it's a great way to get a sense and good peace of mind of what's happening. This is going to give you a full rundown of how everything works. You give your recurring mailing a name, you choose the schedule, so how frequently do you want to send it? Do you want to send it daily, weekly, monthly, and so on. You can choose the time zone, the days of the week, which hours you're going to send, and you can also have, should I be notified when the mailing finishes. Finally, you can look down below to see your scheduled preview. Some important things to keep in mind with recurring mailings that trip up a lot of folks the first time they set them up is make sure that your targeting matches your scheduling. For instance, if we had a mailing that was scheduled to send to recurring donors whose credit cards are expiring this month, we'd probably send that mailing at the beginning of the month, and the targeting would look at anybody whose credit card expires at the end of the month who hasn't updated it yet. If you wanted to set up a second mailing series like, hey, looks like you didn't update it yet, you could schedule that for later in the month. And you'd want to exclude anyone who has already updated their card. Those would be two separate mailing series. You could do a third one like, hey, you didn't update your credit card last month, and now your recurring donations are failing. Could you please update your card? And you'd want to make sure that your targeting found just the people whose cards expired last month. In other words, make sure your targeting matches your scheduling. And if you need to edit your recurring mailing, then stop that recurring mailing series first. A couple of ideas for some recurring mailings that you could do. We've already talked about the first two in detail. So some others that you could do are people who tried to donate today but failed, and asking recurring donors to give more. Once you've sent your mailing, you've done a victory lap, and you've given enough time for folks to open, click, and act and give money, then you'll want to view the performance. From the Mailings tab, if you click Sent here, then you can see your sent mailings, and the view highlighted in red here will let you see the full details of your mailing. This is the performance from the email that I sent to you, inviting you to join this webinar. You can see the number of people who opened and clicked and acted, and the rates as well. In this example, my mailing only has a single subject line. But if your mailing has many subject lines, then you'll see the opens and clicks and actions broken down by subject line, as well as the totals. You can kind of see what it looks like here in this screenshot, because the subject unknown means that people forwarded this email. You can see that 2 people took action as a result. Scrolling down a bit, we can see other stats like how many times has this email been forwarded? Did I get new members from this list? or from this, how many unsubscribes and bounces and spam complaints did we get? And again, this would all be broken down by subject line as well. How many people clicked links? Which links did they click? And for fundraising emails, you can also see how many donations were made, the average donation, and the total amount of money raised as well. Now we're going to briefly cover users, specifically how to find your donors and view their donation history. We're going to start at the Users tab. From there, probably the quickest way is to search using the search box up top. This is going to let you search users by name and email, zip code, or if you know it, their ID. I do want to note that if you use this same search box from a different tab, then it's going to search on something else. Like if you use that search box from the Pages tab, it's going to search for pages. If you use that search box from the Mailings tab, it's going to search for mailings. So it's very context dependent. And again, pay attention to the help text here because it'll give you a sense of what you're actually searching on. You also have more options for finding the users that you're looking for. If you expand the search queries button, then there are queries that you can use to search your users. Like for instance, I have users with active recurring orders here. You'll probably also have other options available to you. Finally, there's the advanced search, which lets you search for users who match our criteria. So let's take a closer look at that advanced search. If you're just searching by email or name, then you could probably use that regular search box from a few slides ago. But if you need to narrow your search in a bit more, then this advanced search can be really helpful. And here's what it looks like. You can search by number of actions. You could search by actions taken on a page, money given, location, and all of that. And if you're familiar with the Reports tab, or if you've worked with the Query Builder, this screen should look pretty similar. Here, I'm searching for anyone who lives in California who's donated a total of at least $250. And I can continue to filter even more in my search if I wanted to. Here's what search results actually look like. And it probably looks just like the Pages tab or the Mailings tab, except we're searching for users instead of pages or mailings. We can click a person's name or their edit button to see more details. Once you've found the user that you want to view, then clicking Edit will take you to their overview page where you can see a summary of information about that person, their name, email, subscription status, actions that they've taken, and more. I'm actually only showing you the top section of this page. There's a lot more details if you were to scroll down. Let's click this Donations, though, this button up top, and it's going to take us to their donation history, where you can see a summary of all of the donations that they've made, the number of one-time donations, the number of monthlies, the totals, the amount of money they've given, average, highest, second highest. So there's a lot of information here. Let's take a closer look, though, at this donation history table. This is where you can see the exact details of when the donations were made, what type they were, what status of the donation is, like is it completed, is it incomplete, and the amount. This is also where you could reverse the payment, which is highlighted in red here, if they were to ask for a refund. If you need to reverse the payment, I want to emphasize that you should reverse the payment in ActionKit by clicking this button rather than in your merchant account directly. Same goes for if you need to update your donor's address, you should do that in ActionKit on the overview screen. Now, if you click this little expander arrow on the right side, you'll see you can click that to see even more details about that contribution. So now we can see the payment processor, the payment method, transaction ID, action ID, which page this donation was made on, and the source. Every now and then, you might get a donor asking you to resend their donation receipt because they didn't get one or they lost it. And this is a new feature that's going to allow you to do just that. Essentially, how it works is when the original confirmation mailing is sent to your donor, we will save an exact copy of it. Since this is a brand new feature, it's only available for recent donations. So this resend confirmation mailing link, that's only going to appear if you can actually resend it. For old donations and for donations where you can't resend the mailing, you won't see the link. So if you see the link for some donations but not others, then that's why. Finally, we're going to recap everything with some reports. Reports measure how well your pages and mailings have performed, how many actions have people taken on a petition page, how many donations has someone made, how many donations came in on a specific page, what's the open click action rate of the mailing, and so on. If we click Browse All, highlighted in red here, we can see some reports that we have available. And on the Browse Reports screen, we can see reports that we can run, and we can search and filter as well. I'm going to filter by WAWD standard. These are the built-in ActionKit reports. There's a large number of these that will be very useful for you. You can also create new reports yourself, and your team has likely created lots of useful reports as well. But for now, I want to show you some that come standard. Once you find the report that you want to run, you can click the name or click Run to begin running it. Many reports will run right away, but some reports need a little bit of information to continue. This one is asking which time period do we want to run this report for. So let's say February 2019. And once we do, we get a chart showing us lots of information. This report in specific will tell us about recurring donations for a specific month that we wanted to look at. So for February 2019, this is my breakdown of recurring donations. So we can see how many donors I had that paid, how many failed to pay, how many were canceled, how many dollars were donated or lost as a result. We have my current totals. We have how many are expiring this month. All of this, of course, is fake data that I made up. But you can see the results in your own instance with real data. To figure out reports that might be useful to you, read the report descriptions carefully to get a sense of what information they cover. This is also a really good reason to be descriptive when you're creating your own reports too, because that's how you'll be able to search and find reports that you've written. But there's only so much that reading the descriptions will do, so run the reports themselves and you'll get a really good sense of what they do, which ones you find useful, and where you think you might be able to glean some actionable insights from. This amounts raised by source return on investment dashboard shows me the source where users came in, how many donations we got as a result. So this one can be really interesting as well. Some reports have charts that make it easier to visualize different statistics, and others have summaries with donations like year to date, previous month, current month. There are so many different reports available, and you can always create your own as well. The Query Builder is a great way to do that. So we covered a lot here. And as a reminder, I'm going to be sending out this recording to folks on Monday, and I'll also make sure that everyone gets a copy of the slides. I also mentioned the advocacy webinar from last month a few times, so I'll be sure and include a link so you could go back and watch that one if you like. So take a look at our documentation and our blog posts, and I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time on a Friday afternoon. Have a great weekend, everyone.